A soft gasp escaped her lips as she cradled the first tiny form against her chest. The hospital room was warm, perfumed faintly with antiseptic and the sweetness of new life. Outside the sliding door, muted voices drifted through, a nurse checking vitals, a doctor murmuring congratulations. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the rush of relief and awe that had washed over her the moment she realized she was a mother. Moments later, a second cry pierced the air, sharp and high. She opened her eyes to see two nurses approaching, one holding a blanket-wrapped bundle. Together they laid the second infant beside the first. Her heart pounded as she reached out, fingers trembling. One baby, her firstborn, had skin like freshly turned earthworm, golden brown, with a head of thick, curling hair. The other lay swaddled in milky white skin, its hair pale as ripened wheat, eyes squeezed shut against the bright lights. Tears welled in her gaze. Twins, one dark, one light, a perfect pair, yet so different. The nurse cooed softly as she adjusted the blankets. "They're both healthy," she said, smiling. "Congratulations." But her joy was short-lived. Beyond the doorway, the soft thud of footsteps announced the arrival of her husband. He entered, face pale, eyes widening at the sight of the two infants. She straightened on the bed, cradling one in each arm. "We did it," she whispered, voice thick. "They're beautiful." He crossed the room in heavy strides, gaze flicking from one child to the other. His brow furrowed as he reached out and touched the cheek of the lighter-skinned baby. The infant stirred, a tiny whimper escaping. His hand recoiled, and he straightened abruptly, turning away. "This one," he said, voice taut. "She's mine." He gestured to the dark-skinned babe. "She's not." The words landed like stones, hard and cold. She froze, heart clenching. "What are you saying?" she managed, voice trembling. He glanced back, eyes dark. "You said they were ours." He spat the words like venom. "But that one, I don't recognize her. She looks nothing like me. How could she be mine?" The room spun. She pressed a hand to her mouth. "They're twins," she whispered. "Identical twins, actually." He snorted. "Identical. They're the opposite in every way." He stalked toward the window and stared out, jaw clenched. "Are you telling me I fathered a white baby and a brown baby after everything? You expect me to believe that?" She rose from the bed, footsteps heavy with hurt. "I carried them inside me," she said, voice breaking. "I felt them kicking together. I watched you love me, hold me as my body changed. You were there every step of the way." He turned, arms folded. "You expect me to believe that?" Really, tears slid down her cheeks. "Yes." He shook his head, voice low. "You expect me to believe this joke?" She closed the distance between them. "This isn't a joke. I love you. I would never betray you." She swallowed, trying to steady her breathing. "I see you with them. Please." Silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. The nurse hovered near the door, uncertain. The doctor stood by the bed, watching with concern. Finally, her husband exhaled, turning his back on them. "I need air," he said curtly. He strode from the room. Once the door clicked shut, she sank back onto the bed, hands trembling as she held both infants close, their weight, so tiny and perfect, pressed against her heart. She wept quietly as the doctor approached, gentle and calm. "You did wonderfully," he murmured, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Medical tests will confirm they're twins. It's rare but possible for twins to have different appearances, especially if there's a mix of recessive genes. Let's let nature take its course." She nodded numbly, tears blurring her vision. "Thank you." Days passed in a haze of feedings, diaper changes, and whispers in hushed tones. Her husband remained distant. He visited the nursery briefly each morning and evening, eyes sharp as they landed on the pale-skinned child, then darted away. He held the darker baby with tenderness, cooed, touched her hair gently, but he could not bring himself to mimic the same with her sister. Each time she reached for him with tiny hands, his gaze flickered away, as though repelled. She spent her nights wondering how to bridge the chasm growing between them. She dreamed of a father who would cradle both his daughters when they cried. But reality had fractured their family before it could truly begin. On the fourth night, she lay awake, listening to the twins sleeping side by side in their bassinets, their breathing soft, gentle rhythms. She watched their chests rise and fall, marveling at how different they appeared, yet how similar their breaths. In the dim light, she reached out and brushed a stray curl from the darker baby's forehead and then did the same for the lighter one. Her heart ached. Soft footsteps sounded at the door. The nurse peeked in. "Mrs. Carter," she whispered, "your husband is here. He wants to speak with you." Her heart thundered. She smoothed her nightgown and rose, The nurse led her to a small sitting area by the window, where her husband sat in silence. He looked up as she entered, eyes tired. "I'm sorry," he said simply. Her breath caught. "About what?" He rubbed his face warily. "About doubting you. I thought I knew my own children." He gestured toward the nursery. "But I've seen the tests. They came back both blood types. Genetic markers that match mine. It's impossible to ignore." She closed her eyes, relief mingling with sorrow. "They are mine and yours. Both of them." He nodded, voice low. "I know, and I'm ashamed. I let fear of what people would say, of society's judgments cloud my mind." His gaze met hers, glossy with regret. "I never should have doubted you." Tears slipped from her eyes. "I needed you." He reached for her hand, hesitated, then closed his fingers round hers. "I want us to be a family," he said quietly. "I want to love her, both of them, as my own daughters." She looked toward the nursery, where soft moonlight illuminated the two bassinets. "They need their father," she whispered. "They need you." He swallowed. "I will try," he vowed. Morning light streamed through the blinds as she positioned the children on the bed. The dark-skinned twin cooed, eyes bright and curious. The pale-skinned one yawned, stretching tiny limbs. She watched them with awe, marveling at their differences. One's soft, dark curls, the other's pale, wispy hair. One's chocolate brown eyes, the other's sea-green gaze. Yet their expressions mirrored each other. The curious tilt of the head, the puckered lips, the innocent sparkle of wonder. Her husband entered quietly, footsteps cautious. She smiled softly, gesturing for him to come closer. "Would you like to hold them?" He nodded, swallowing hard. He moved to the bed and lifted the darker baby into his arms first. She settled against his chest, head resting under his chin. He inhaled her scent with a soft sigh, cheek brushing her curls. He closed his eyes for a moment, a smile tugging at his lips. Then he shifted, carefully placing his arms around the other twin. She blinked up at him, curiosity shining. He kissed her forehead, and she relaxed into him. His eyes glistened, and he studied her face, tracing her tiny nose with his fingertip. Tears welled in his eyes. "They're both beautiful," he whispered. She reached for his hand. "They're ours." He looked at her, voice thick. "I love them." Relief and joy flooded her chest. "Thank you." Weeks passed, and a new routine blossomed. Morning sun found them in the nursery, her husband changing diapers, she feeding bottles, both of them bouncing the twins gently against their shoulders. He found himself drawn to a rhythm of laughter when one of them giggled, a small, fluttering sound that echoed off pastel walls. He discovered that the dark-skinned daughter loved to dance to lullabies, kicking her legs and waving arms, while her pale sister calmed quickly when he hummed softly. One afternoon, he settled on the rocking chair with both babies in his arms. They wedged against each other, tiny heads touching. He gazed at their intertwined forms, a single smile playing across his features. "How is this possible?" he murmured. "How did we get so lucky?" She joined him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "They're miracles," she said simply. "Unique, perfect miracles." He looked at her through misted eyes. "I'm sorry for the doubts," he repeated. "I won't ever let anything come between us again." He kissed her temple and cradled both babies tighter. When the twins reached 2 months, they began to respond to voices. One evening, she and her husband sat on the couch. Twins nestled on their laps as they watched old home videos. She pressed play, and on the screen, they were newlyweds, arms entwined, laughter echoing as they danced in their living room. Her husband looked younger then, carefree, eyes bright with possibility. The darker twin blinked at the flickering images, then cooed. The pale sister reached out a hand toward the screen. He laughed softly. They recognized Mom and Dad already. She smiled, wrapping an arm around him. They know love. He kissed her hair, and each other. The digital glow illuminated their faces as the two infants gurgled in unison. At for months, the twins began to show distinct personalities. The dark-skinned baby was bold, reaching out eagerly for toys and cracking wide smiles at strangers. The pale-skinned one was more reserved, preferring to observe before she joined the fun. Their behavioral differences fascinated him. He'd often lie beside them on a play mat, shaking a rattle for one and then a plush toy for the other, delighting in the subtle shifts in their expressions. One day, he took them both outside for the first time. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose as they strolled through the neighborhood park. Neighbors stopped to admire the twins. "Oh,
how beautiful." But some voices whispered, puzzled, "How could one child be so dark and the other so fair?" But he stood tall, chest swelling with pride, and he would answer firmly, They're both mine, my daughters. As the stroller rolled along the winding paths, she walked beside him, hand in his. The twins slept peacefully, their tiny bodies rising and falling in tandem. In that moment, the world felt whole again. The doubts, the whispers, the fears, they all receded. All that remained was love. He bent down, brushing a kiss against the crown of the pale-skinned baby's head. Her eyelids fluttered, and she stirred, eyes opening to meet his gaze. "Daddy," he whispered, voice full of wonder. "I'm yours." Behind him, the dark-skinned twin chirped awake and waved her arms, as if to join the declaration. He laughed, picking her up gently. Together, they faced the horizon, the two girls, so different, and yet so like, ready to step into their story, hand in hand with their adoring parents.